want everybody to prepare for tomorrow. It is a big national day. I noticed that it was National Dessert Day tomorrow, so make sure that you prepare.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Sam.
Morning.
And I suppose I should give an official introduction that I'm Deborah Klein, president of BusinessWise. For those of you that have been joining us at Insiders, we've been doing this for many, many years, although only recently, the past several months virtually. We all know the changes that we're having, so we're glad to be able to continue Insiders and offer our clients and friends the opportunity to think a little bit different, learn some new insights about new business development. If anybody was expecting this to be a training on the BusinessWise, on the BWise system, you're going to be sorely disappointed because that isn't something that we do today, but we certainly do offer that at other times. But today is a great idea exchange. And what I've learned over the years, many years of doing this, is that as much as we try to bring new ideas and insights on new business development to our clients and friends, one of the reasons that I love doing this is that I often get great feedback and ideas and think about things differently from the ideas and insights that our participants offer. So we will be giving you an opportunity to enlighten me a little later when we go into the breakout rooms, and I'll be looking forward to that.
Yeah, I was going to just mention that today's presentation is a little bit different. For those of you who have joined Insiders before, normally we've given a presentation about 20 or 25 minutes and then split up into breakout rooms to discuss it. Today we wanted to try to be a little bit more interactive, so we're going to try to use the Zoom polling feature, and the presentation lends itself to that because it's based on a quiz that Deborah put together several years ago about identifying 7 top behaviors of successful sales hunters. And Deb, I don't know if you wanted to talk a little bit about the history of that quiz or how it came about or how long we've used it. I know that for my part, what's great about it is that the skills have stayed largely the same. It's just about how to adapt and apply them to the circumstances, which is particularly timely in the current business landscape.
Well, I'll leave all of the comments and the specifics of this quiz that we're putting together. By the way, no panic. There are no grades. Everybody passes with an A+. So when you participate, nobody's going to know how you answered, and there really aren't any wrong ones. So anybody that still has school anxiety, let it go, because this is not high anxiety morning.
Thank you. And since looks like we have a good number of folks here and we're 5 minutes in, I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody. And I'm also going to keep everybody on mute for the presentation part, just in the interest of keeping it running smoothly. Then I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Everybody can see that okay? Good. Well, welcome again, everybody, to BusinessWise Insiders. This is now our 6th session, so we're 6 months in, at half a year into virtual Insiders. Really appreciate all the interest from all 3 markets that BusinessWise serves: Atlanta, Dallas, Fort Worth, and Charlotte. And just a couple of ground rules. As I mentioned, given the large number of attendees, I'm going to keep everybody on mute for the presentation portion, but I will be periodically launching a poll feature, which gives you poses a question. It'll give you a set of 4 different behaviors, sales behaviors, and it'll be your job to, or your challenge to select which of the 4 best describes a master sales hunter. As Deb mentioned, there are really no wrong answers. All of the behaviors in this quiz are good behaviors to have, and it's just a great opportunity to share perspectives on what we all think makes a master sales hunter, particularly as it relates to the biz dev environment of 2020, which is obviously a bit different and challenging. And because Insiders is traditionally about exchanging ideas and meeting each other, at the end of the presentation, we'll go into breakout rooms, and we'll have one of our wise guys in each room to sort of facilitate the discussion, but you'll be able to offer insights and share ideas. If you do have a question during the presentation, feel free to ask it in the chat box. We'll write it down, and then we can cover it in the breakout sessions. So as I mentioned, the topic of this presentation is the 7 skills of 2020 sales hunters, how to beat the odds for more leads and appointments. And as I mentioned, this is based on a quiz that we've had for several years, and the skills themselves have really held up. I think it speaks to the fact that there are some fundamental sales principles that never go out of style. But given that this year's business landscape is quite a bit different and more challenging, we've highlighted how each of these skills has become different and more relevant and particularly important in helping to make connections and set first-time appointments in 2020. So we'll start out with the fact that 2020 has been challenging. The world of B2B sales looks a little bit different now than it did 8 months ago. But the successful sales hunters among us always adapt and apply fundamental sales principles in new ways to rise above the crowd. And I think an important point to make here is that even though the circumstances we face in 2020 are unique, this isn't the first time that the sales world has experienced a dramatic shift. And as always, the most successful sales hunters are the ones that know how to adapt to the circumstances in front of them, figuring out how to apply those fundamental principles in different ways. And in the world of business-wise, rising above the crowd really means finding ways to connect with more of your best local prospects and setting first-time appointments that start you on a path towards a sale. So that's really what we'll be focusing on today. And according to our research and experience, the most successful sales hunters consistently master 7 skills. So the goal of this presentation is to name those. As I mentioned, in 2020, many of these skills remain critical, but some have been modified and used in different ways to fit the current circumstances. Others have become more important. And just before we launch into the first question, a reminder that this is totally anonymous, so don't feel bad about picking the wrong answer, and really there are no wrong answers because, as I mentioned, all the skills in this presentation are good ones to have. So bear with me, I'm going to try to make sure this goes as smoothly as possible. Now you should all see a poll in front of you, and I'll give you guys just 30 or 60 seconds to select your answer. And at the end of each of these polls, I will share the results. And it's just sort of for your own edification, but then we will talk about why certain skills were favored in the breakout sessions. It's always an interesting discussion point. All right, looks like pretty much everybody has voted. I will share the results. Can everybody see that? It looks like the clear winner here was creative, with assertive number 2, and then competitive and decisive rounding out the pack. Our answer is to be assertive. We're going against the popularity contest today. And why is that? So here we have our assertive sales hunter, and really it boils down to how you define each of these terms. So depending on how you define assertive or creative, obviously there's an argument to be made for that being the differentiating skill. But what we might mean by assertive, I think a good way to put it is that an assertive sales rep is someone who's confident enough in his or her perspective to offer honest advice without worrying that their clients or prospects won't like them, but not so arrogant that they won't listen to their prospect's perspective or prioritize their prospect's interests above their own. So here you have the assertive sales hunter saying, I give honest advice to my prospects about how to solve problems. I don't coddle or aggressively sell them, and I'm willing to step out my own comfort zone to serve my prospects' interests rather than my own. Another way to think about this is that assertiveness sort of sits in a sweet spot between extremes that can be unconstructive in a sales relationship. So it's a result of a tension between behaviors that are healthy in moderation, but unhealthy in the extreme. So you see on one side, you have sales rep who's too aggressive, on the other too sociable, assertive's right in the middle. Unpredictable and risk averse, too competitive, don't care enough. Now, all these things are sort of good tendencies to have. It's good to be competitive up to a point, or it's good to not, avoid that competitive drive, but assertive is that middle ground where you really want to be. And then, there's a few key takeaways here. It gets down to the importance of trust. And in order to earn trust, you have to be honest. The idea that competitiveness can end up clouding your judgment and preventing you from offering the best advice to your prospect. And then the distinction of aiming to be respected rather than liked, and oftentimes those overlap, but aren't always the same thing. And in the context of the 2020 B2B sales landscape, it's safe to say that assertiveness, as we've defined it here, has become even more important. You probably remember in March, at the beginning of the pandemic, there was this period where sales organizations were almost walking on eggshells with their prospects, really uncertain about whether the usual sales pitch was too heavy-handed. And then they ended up sort of overcompensating and being too gentle and taking it toward the coddling end of the spectrum. On the other hand, sales reps that were too aggressive or that didn't change their approach at all came across as tone deaf. So in the current environment, being assertive means acknowledging that circumstances have changed, but also being willing to push your prospects and clients to take actions that may be out of their comfort zone to help move their business forward. And that's what earns you trust and respect, which are the really precious commodities now. Deb, did you want to add anything?
Sure. I want to remind everyone that while we at BusinessWise certainly care and believe in the entire sales process, our focus is always about ways to get that first appointment with someone that you didn't know before, that didn't know you or what you had to offer. And so when you think about assertiveness, it's particularly important because this suspect or prospect that you're interacting with doesn't know you, you don't have a referral, and isn't trusting you and doesn't know why they should give you the time of day. So there's a certain amount of assertiveness and confidence that we all have to have when we're trying to help move that prospect to say yes about that first appointment. For those of you that haven't read The Challenger Sale, it's certainly a book that has gained a lot of respect and notoriety in recent years, and it also addresses this assertiveness issue. So I would recommend that everyone that hasn't read it take a look, or remind us perhaps to reread it and see what those authors talk about in terms of assertiveness.
Thanks, Deb. Okay, so we're gonna just jump right into question 2. Feel free to submit your answers. Give you just a minute to respond. I believe one of our wise guys offered to hum the Jeopardy theme song, but we won't implement that unless absolutely necessary. All right, so I'll give everybody just a couple more seconds. And I'm going to share the results. So for this set, reliable problem solver One out pretty handily. Savvy questioner and prospect pain anticipator getting votes. And once again, we go against the grain. So our second skill of a master sales hunter is to anticipate your prospect's pain. So if we dig a little deeper into what that means, anticipating a prospect's pain really starts with the notion that your prospect needs a reason not just to buy, but to even engage with you in the first place. What do they get from a meeting with you, even if they never become a client? So we have the sales doctor saying he anticipates his prospect's pain. He understands his prospect needs a reason to engage with him. When he helps his prospects identify and quantify their pain, his prospects are more likely to take action to address that pain. And that action obviously includes making a decision to buy what you offer, but way before that, it includes deciding to even start a conversation or set an appointment with you. They have to know that they're going to get value, and the value is you helping them identify and quantify the pain they have. A few quick takeaways here. The first is that while the pain may be there no matter what, the way you frame it can really help the prospect feel its intensity. And obviously, the more intense the feeling of pain, the more likely they are to act. Similarly, there's a difference between something that is causing intense pain and something that's just a problem, but that can be pushed off. It's your job to home in on the actual pain point and help your prospect identify which is which. And finally, we always like to remind clients that a common sales objection, we don't have the budget, can actually be turned into a pain point. Why not? Isn't that holding you back from addressing your big priorities? How will that get better without action? And another important point here is that it's not just about discovering pain by asking open-ended questions. It's about anticipating pain that you already know is likely to exist. We've all had many prospect interactions before. We know the general categories of pain our prospects feel. So anticipating which of those your prospect is likely to feel and offering insights about how to begin quantifying and addressing it. And when you can take that step up from discover to anticipator, the value your prospect gets from an appointment becomes that much clearer and harder to resist. And then just finally, bringing it back to the 2020 sales landscape, there's certainly no shortage of pain out there right now. In some ways, that makes your job easier as a sales rep because there's a lot of pain points to choose from, but it's also overwhelming and confusing and rapidly changing. And the best pain discoverers are the one that simplify the equation for their prospects. What pain points are the most critical and why? And what can you do now to start alleviating them? Deb, did you have anything?
Well, it doesn't surprise me that this was not the most popular answer. It really is a new way to think about things that I know everyone already does. We know we're trying to understand what our prospects' challenges are in their business to reach their business goals. And yet anybody that sells something, as Sam was saying, has a good idea of what the most prevalent issues are that we as salespeople can at least address and solve. Or if we can't address or solve them, perhaps we can refer someone that can. And I think when you prepare to anticipate your prospects' problems or challenges or pain, you're going to really have something to offer for that first appointment. If you can offer someone a way to address insights and ideas that you know are relevant today, and you make the person think about something in a different way, you really, really have a good way of getting a yes to that first time appointment, why somebody should give you their precious time to meet with you is a really critical thing for us all to think about.
Thanks, Deb. And I'm just going to jump into question 3 to keep things moving. So here we have, which of these best describes a master sales hunter? Cold calls and emails consistently, knows product inside and out, builds strong relationships, or focuses on results. Funny, I get to see all the voting before you guys get to see it, so it's interesting. I'm eager to share the results with you. Just a few more, I think 2/3 voted. Let a few more people weigh in. Alrighty, I'm going to end it and share. And this is not shocking to me, but building strong relationships won pretty handily here. But we're going to keep moving along and going against the grain. So skill number 3 for us is cold calling and emailing consistently. And here we have our sales hunter saying, I cold call and email consistently. I'm not going to wait for my prospect to find me. I know that cold prospecting works when done consistently. I use strategies to maximize efficiency so I don't waste my or my prospect's time. I just want to make one quick point here. In addition to talking about all the different answers in the breakout sessions, I'm going to share a document with everybody after the presentation that goes through each behavior and talks about why it's good, but why we didn't necessarily select it as the top 7 behavior, just to give you a little more context. Moving along here. So the key tips here for cold prospecting are, number 1, not wasting time. So when it comes to cold calling, don't waste time. Don't waste your own time with too much pre-call research or trying over to win a resistant prospect. With email prospecting, don't waste time with wordy emails that don't get to the point. Be direct, and consider using an automated approach rather than a manual one so that your emails are going out without you having to invest a ton of time and energy. And in both, be direct and clear about what you're asking for, what you're offering. And of course, when you combine email and cold calling, you have an especially robust strategy. Emails can warm up cold calls and vice versa. And a diverse approach results in fewer opportunities slipping through the cracks. And there's one point about being consistent with this. Consistency is different from frequency. You don't have to be calling 1,000 people or emailing 1,000 people every day. It's far more important to set aside time to do it every day and ensure that you are cold calling and emailing. Make it part of your biz dev routine, regardless of how frequently you're doing it. And then finally, on the 2020 landscape, while referrals are still important, we've seen a lot of in-person prospecting channels go off the table, and weaker economic circumstances can translate to fewer leads appearing out of nowhere. So that all taken together means that a proactive biz dev strategy is especially important, that you need to root that in efficiency in order to make the most of whatever opportunities you are getting. Deb?
Thanks, Sam. One of my clients and friends, Chris Cruz, asked a great question that I think is important to answer with regard to the previous problem that or behavior that we were talking about, and that had to do with what we mean by pain. And I want to, while there are lots of different levels of pain, sometimes it can just be something that's bothersome to something that is as critical as how am I going to make payroll next week. But all of those pains are problems that are occupying the minds of our clients, or in this case, our prospects, really has to do with what are the things that are, what are the problems or challenges or situations that are inhibiting a prospect from reaching their goals. It could be a personal goal, it could be a business goal, a combination of all of those things. Chris, if you have a different definition of pain when you get in your breakout room, please do share that. With regard to this topic, again, we're talking about how you're going to get that first appointment. And while creating relationships is critical, I think sometimes we spend too much time thinking about that when we can't have a relationship. We can build rapport with a stranger, but it's like going out or before meeting somebody in a bar and wanting to have a first date. What you don't have in that moment is a relationship. So when you're trying to find more dates in the world of sales, You've got to figure out a way to do so in addition to referrals, and certainly we don't have much networking these days. So consistently making calls and sending emails with offering great value for a reason to meet is critical for any sales hunter.
Thanks, Deb. So I just launched the fourth question to get things moving along. And we have, which of these best describes a master sales hunter? Deftly manages conflicts, exhibits empathy, follows the sales process, or contributes to the team? Looks like we're on the same page about this one. Give people a few more seconds. So follows the sales process overwhelmingly was the winner, and we wholeheartedly agree. So this skill brings together some of the elements we've already talked about, but what's uniquely important about it is that it emphasizes process over results. So just like cold calling consistently is a key part of prospecting, ensuring that you are sticking to that without worrying too much about how many people you're reaching or how many appointments you're setting is a key part of this skill. So why is that important? Here you have a sales plan master saying the outcome is up to my prospect, the process is within my control. A strong process is win-win for both my prospect and me. And if I focus on delivering value, I'll earn trust, respect, and more sales. And really, this is a reminder that no matter what the individual biz dev tactics you decide to use, you should follow them methodically and consistently with a focus on delivering value to your prospects and then measure and improve to get better. The reason this is so important in 2020 is that with so much having changed, results have been especially chaotic and inconsistent. And it's easy to just focus on that part and to subsequently feel even more out of control. But there are still things we can control, and your process is one of them. Maybe even more importantly, periods of change and uncertainty like the one we're in now present an opportunity or even force you to change your process when otherwise you might have just moved forward with momentum. And that can help shake things up in a way that benefits your long-term biz dev. And obviously, just the quick key points on the slide: trusting your process, not pushing a solution that doesn't fit, reinforcing your process with regular sales meetings, and then writing your process down so that it's sort of codified, and then measuring, revising, refining, and improving. Anything you wanted to add, Deb?
I think we're good here.
Great. All right, question 5. A master sales hunter is most likely to say, I set goals and I achieve them. I have boundless energy and stamina. Professional sales is my career identity, and I am 100% confident in my abilities. This is a tough one. Give everybody a few more minutes, or sorry, seconds. All right. Well, I am sad to say that the one we chose didn't get any votes, but it's a good opportunity to talk about it because this one is really near and dear to our hearts here at BusinessWise, because it gets at the core of what we try to do. Our job at BusinessWise is to help salespeople sell better. And of course, a big piece of that, as our clients know, is helping sales reps connect with more of their best local prospects using trustworthy contact data. But it's also just as important to approach your job as a sales rep with pride and dignity. So here our sales professional is saying that sales is my career identity. I dispute the perception that sales reps are untrustworthy. Just like a doctor or lawyer, I offer my clients and prospects a valuable service. I take pride in my career as a trusted advisor. And I hope this concept has come through in this presentation so far. We could have called the presentation the 7 tricks of successful sales reps, but the fact is these aren't tricks. They're skills that you learn and get better at and use to serve other people. Sales relationships built on anything less than that aren't rooted in trust, We've already talked about why that's especially important now, and those relationships are much flimsier as a result. And just a few tips for reminding yourself about the importance of sales professionalism. Job versus profession, it's a good distinction to make. Job is something you do because you have to. A profession is a career that you pursue with energy and passion. Profession requires education and training, whereas a job may not. If sales is a profession, then you provide a service. What is it? How do your clients benefit from it? So defining it is important. And then going back to the importance of being assertive, make it about your own standards for quality and integrity, live up to those, and you won't give anyone reason to doubt you or worry about prospect liking you or being turned off. And if every other skill in this presentation has become important in 2020, then maybe this is the most important of all, because it really infuses professionalism into everything you do as a sales rep, and that can come through in a really great way in a time like this. Do you want to add anything, Ben?
I do. Someday in the not too distant future, I hope, when the first grader is asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? Somebody, in addition to saying police officer and doctor and astronaut and environmentalist, someone is going to say salesperson, and it's not going to be ridiculous. Because unfortunately, we as salespeople get a lot of bad press. It thrills me to know that there are more and more schools, business schools, that are adding the sales component as part of their curriculum. And I will look forward, perhaps in my lifetime, to see this change.
Thanks, Deb. So we have two more questions. And while sales professionalism would have been a really great way to bring this presentation all together, these next two sort of logically follow from it. It's a little bit of a hint. So the question is, a master sales hunter is most likely to remain emotionally objective, be likable and sociable, listen thoughtfully, or invest in training. So this is another tough one. And so you can see the results. Most people lean toward listen thoughtfully and remaining emotionally objective, or I guess emotionally objective and training, both tied for second place. And while listening is important, we chose investing in training. So here, this is, as I mentioned, a perfect follow-up to the importance of sales professionalism. If sales is a highly skilled profession on par with other professions, then sales reps need to be trained in those skills. And naturally, training also begets results. So as our sales professor puts it, I know the difference between a sale and a lost opportunity is often very small. And when I invest in sales training, I learn what works and what doesn't. I gain a critical edge on my competitors. So in addition to taking pride in your work and gaining the skills you need to do it well, it makes the difference between a good sales rep and a bad one. And just a few quick stats, because I think this is important and often eye-opening. The average company spends $10,000 to $15,000 hiring an individual and only $2,000 a year in sales training, which seems a little bit lopsided. It takes 10 months or more for a new sales rep to be fully productive, and training can accelerate that. And then continuous training gives 50% higher net sales per employee. And just, again, bringing this all together, you can see how this relates back to some of the other skills we've covered, like planning and professionalism. And in 2020, like everything else, much of sales training has moved from in-person to online. In some ways that makes it more challenging, so you don't get the in-person benefit, but it also makes it more accessible. And we would strongly urge everyone to explore the sales training options that are out there and enroll your sales reps. And of course, we'd be more than happy to provide any recommendations. Deb, did you want to add anything?
Just for transparency, Business-Wise does not charge for sales training. That isn't our business. We give a lot of training away as part of what we do, and yet we are consumers of sales training and believers in sales training and training in anything that can make you a better professional. So all the things that you read and learn and all the professional articles and insights that you're gaining are critical for your success.
All right, so on to our final question, and we're going to throw you another little curveball here. But again, the hint here is that this sort of logically follows from being a sales professional. So which of these best describes a master sales hunter? Lifelong learner, consistent role player, student of psychology, big picture thinker. And the winner of this, and this always seems to be the case when we give this quiz, is lifelong learner, which may seem like it follows logically from training, but in fact, we like to talk about the importance of consistent role play. And we always get a lot of flack when we follow up lifelong learner after investing in training and say it's not the right answer. And that is totally understandable. But the way we like to make the distinction is that there's a difference between learning on your own, which is great. It obviously can help develop your skills independently and gain new perspectives. But the formal training is really what forms the foundation of a successful sales career. And that the logical extension of training is practicing. So if training is a logical follow-up to sales as a profession, then role-playing is the logical next step after that. When you're trained to learn certain skills and tactics, and then you practice those skills, you learn how to perform them optimally. So as our sales role player would explain it, like an athlete, I know I'll perform better if I practice my craft. The more I rehearse challenging sales scenarios, the more comfortable I'll be when they arise in the real world. And if I don't role play, I may fail to convert good prospects into clients. And more to the point, what good is it to know what skills you need but not be able to put them into practice? We know role playing isn't every sales rep's favorite thing to do, but it really does work. We do it often at BusinessWise. In fact, we have a standing Friday afternoon cold call clinic where we practice a variety of phone prospecting scenarios, and the consistency has helped make our reps more comfortable with the format. More importantly, has improved their skills. And again, we'd be happy to offer ideas to anybody who wants for how to structure role play or suggest topics, which is a few quick tips. Make your role play challenging. When it's harder, the real thing seems easier in comparison. Take turns playing the role of the prospect. It gives you a real insight into how your prospect might be thinking when you're engaging with them and make you better on the other side as a result. And then the importance of really offering positive feedback. It's easy to criticize, but picking the things that somebody did well can help boost their confidence in their ability, which is really a key to any engagement. And then as for why this is important in the current landscape, again, a greater share of proactive prospecting engagements are happening over email or the phone, which is more challenging than a typical relaxed networking event or a referral conversation. And the more you practice, the more prepared you'll be. So if it can make a difference between a missed opportunity and a first-time appointment, what have you got to lose? Deb, did you want to close anything out?
Sure. There was a great comment from one of our folks that was commenting about a previous question. Could sales training be more important, for example, than listening thoughtfully? And I would totally agree with that comment that listening thoughtfully, like many of these skills that we didn't pick, is absolutely positively critical. The reason that we talked about training is that, as far as I'm concerned, listening thoughtfully is table stakes at this point for a salesperson. If you've got a salesperson that doesn't listen, you probably have an unsuccessful salesperson. So as I mentioned earlier, every one of these skills, every one of these answers was a right answer because they are all extremely critical skills. But some of the ones that we talked about today are beyond the table stakes, are the little things that make a big difference to a sales hunter.
Thanks, Deb. And that's the end of the presentation. I'm going to jump into the breakout rooms pretty quickly to give people as much time to meet each other and share ideas. You're muted now, but you can unmute yourself in the breakout room, and I'll just quickly make sure that we have the right wise guys in each room so that we can start the conversations. But thanks again for joining us, and I'll start the rooms.